I, 30F, need advice on how to deal with my family after a disastrous birthday party that revealed shocking secrets and completely destroyed my relationship with my sister, 29F. I'm still in shock and don't know what to do. For some background, I've been raised alongside my adoptive younger sister. We're only a year apart in age, but our experiences growing up couldn't have been more different. To put it bluntly, she's always been a spoiled brat and, honestly, a horrible person in general. Our parents have always favored her, and it's been a source of tension in our family for as long as I can remember. A few days ago, we celebrated my sister's 30th birthday. Her birthdays have always been a huge deal because she loves to make a spectacle out of everything, and our parents always indulge her. This time was no different. In contrast, when I celebrated my 30th birthday a couple of months ago, it was a much more low-key affair. I just went out with a few friends and spent the day with them. That was good enough for me because I don't really like huge parties or crowds. But that's my sister's thing, and I've always tried to respect that, even if I don't understand it. The party started off like any other family gathering. Relatives and friends filled our parents' house, there was music playing, and everyone seemed to be having a good time. I was trying to keep a low profile, making small talk with some cousins and nibbling on appetizers. I should have known something was off when I noticed my sister kept glancing at me with this weird, almost triumphant look in her eyes. About an hour into the party, my sister clinked her glass and announced she wanted to make a speech. This wasn't unusual, she loves being the center of attention. Everyone gathered around, and she started off pretty normally, thanking everyone for coming and expressing how happy she was to be celebrating this milestone. But then things took a turn I never saw coming. She started talking about how grateful she was that our parents had adopted her into the family. Okay, fine, nothing wrong with that. But then she said, "I'm so thankful that you've always treated me better than your own daughter. That's why I always get these huge blowout parties for my birthdays, while she never does." The room went silent. I felt like all the air had been sucked out of my lungs. Was she really going there? In front of everyone? But she was just getting started. She went on to brag about how she had always been the better daughter to our parents and how grateful she was that they had raised her differently so that she didn't turn out to be a failure like me. I stood there in complete shock, unable to move or speak. I couldn't believe this was happening. Sure, my sister and I have had our differences, but this was on a whole new level of cruelty. She kept going, tearing into me about my appearance, my grades from years ago, even my sense of style. It felt like she was determined to humiliate me in every possible way. As if that wasn't bad enough, she wrapped up her little speech by saying how grateful she was that I was such a failure because that was probably why our parents had adopted her, so they would at least have one daughter who wasn't a total loser. The silence in the room was deafening. I looked around, desperately hoping anyone, would step in and put a stop to this. But everyone, including our parents, just stood there, frozen in disbelief. I felt so alone and exposed, like I was naked in front of a crowd of judgmental strangers. Just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, my aunt stepped forward. She walked over to where I was standing and handed me an envelope. The look on her face was a mix of sadness and determination. She told me not to open it until she was done talking. What came next was even more shocking than my sister's cruel speech. My aunt revealed that my sister hadn't been adopted through an agency at all. She had been adopted from our aunt herself. The room erupted in gasps and whispers. My aunt explained that she had been planning to talk to our parents after the party about telling my sister the truth about her parentage. She thought that now that my sister was 30, she was old enough to handle the truth. My aunt went on to share that when she got pregnant with my sister, she wasn't ready to be a mother. She and her boyfriend weren't committed and had no plans to marry. But she didn't want to terminate the pregnancy either. So, she approached my mother, her older sister, about adopting the baby. My mom agreed because she and dad wanted a sibling for me, but due to complications in her first pregnancy, they weren't sure if getting pregnant again was a good idea. They had kept it a secret from everyone else in the family to avoid gossip and judgment. My aunt said she had always believed that if her daughter was being raised by my mother, she would grow up to be a wonderful person. But she said she had clearly been wrong, judging by what had just transpired. No decent person in their right mind would ever try to humiliate their sibling the way you just did, my aunt said, looking directly at my sister. I'm ashamed of you. I felt a small sense of vindication hearing those words. Finally, someone was standing up for me. But the drama was far from over. My aunt then turned to me and told me to open the envelope. Inside was a blank check. She explained that she had initially planned to give this to my sister as a birthday gift. But after witnessing how my sister had turned out, she no longer had any interest in giving her any sort of gift at all. Fill in whatever amount you want, my aunt told me. It's yours now. That's when all hell broke loose. My sister completely lost it. I'm not even joking, she literally came running towards me, trying to grab the check out of my hands. I managed to hold it out of her reach, but she kept coming at me, screaming and crying. Our parents had to physically restrain her because she was acting so hysterical. It didn't even seem to matter to her that she had just found out who her actual mother was. All she cared about was the blank check. The greed and entitlement in her eyes were terrifying. I couldn't take it anymore. I ran upstairs to my old room and locked myself in. I could hear the chaos continuing downstairs, shouting, crying, things being knocked over. But I couldn't bring myself to go back down there and face it all. I stayed in my room for almost 2 hours, just sitting on my old bed, staring at the walls and trying to process everything that had happened. I texted a few close friends, trying to keep my nerves calm. They were shocked and supportive, telling me to stay strong and that none of this was my fault. When I finally worked up the courage to come out of my room, the house was quiet. All the guests had left. I found my sister crying on the couch with our parents seated beside her, looking shell-shocked and exhausted. As soon as they saw me, my parents started apologizing profusely. They said they were really sorry about everything that had happened at the party. They made my sister apologize too, but it was painfully obvious that she didn't mean a word of it. She was only saying sorry because our parents were sitting right there and had probably forced her to do it. I didn't say anything in response to her apology. What could I say? Oh, it's okay that you publicly humiliated me and revealed that our entire family dynamic has been based on lies? No, I wasn't going to give her that satisfaction. But then my parents dropped another bombshell. They told me that now that my sister had apologized, I needed to give the check to her because it was rightfully hers. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. After everything that had happened, they were still taking her side? That's when I finally found my voice. I told them I wasn't going to do that because the check wasn't rightfully hers anymore. My aunt had planned to give it to her, yes, but after what she had done, she had given it to me instead. Right in front of everyone. So now, rightfully, it was mine. My sister started crying again, even louder than before. It felt like she was trying to drown out the sound of everything else with her wails. But I didn't let that stop me. I kept talking over the sound of her crying. I told them that for years, they had both treated my sister like she was above everyone else, and now she had actually started to believe it. Otherwise, she would never have thought she could make such a humiliating and nasty speech about me in front of so many people and get away with it. I said that nobody in their right mind would do such a thing and expect the victim of their actions to be fine with it, except for maybe my parents and sister, because they were just that entitled. I told them I'd had enough of being treated like a second-class citizen in my own home. That speech my sister had made was the last straw. We've had our fair share of differences over the years, but there was no explanation or excuse for this level of cruelty. I announced that I was going to take the money my aunt had given me and use it to move out as soon as possible. I was already staying away for most of the time because of grad school. But now, I told them, I was never going to come back again. I'm done with this family, I said, my voice shaking with emotion. Truth be told, this has never been my family in the first place. Even though my sister was the one who was adopted, I was always the one who was treated like an outcast. You never made me feel like I was one of your own. As I was saying these things, my sister's crying got even louder. I don't even know how she was managing to produce that much noise, but it got to the point where her voice was literally breaking. That's when my parents intervened. They told me I was being selfish and mean on purpose, that I was making my sister upset, and that's not what this family stands for. They said my sister had already apologized for her little speech and that she was sorry about everything. But if I couldn't find it in myself to forgive her, then maybe I should leave since I was done with this family. Their words hit me like a slap in the face. After everything that had happened, they were still choosing her over me. It was clear where I stood in this family, and it wasn't anywhere good. So, I did exactly what they suggested. I went back upstairs, packed my bags, and walked out that very instant. I could have gone to stay with friends, but I decided to head over to my aunt's place instead. I had a lot of questions, and I needed to talk to her. I've been staying with my aunt since then. My classes don't start again for a few weeks, so I think I'm going to be here until then. It's made my family reasonably upset, so I guess that's a good thing. Now, I'm left trying to figure out what to do next. I'm hurt, angry, and confused. Part of me wants to cut all ties with my family and never look back. But another part of me wonders if I'm overreacting. Am I the one in the wrong here? I keep replaying everything in my mind, wondering if there were signs I missed over the years. How did things get this bad? And what am I supposed to do now? My whole world has been turned upside down, and I feel like I'm drowning in all these emotions. I could really use some outside perspective on this. Am I justified in wanting to cut ties with my family? Or should I try to work things out? How do I even begin to process all of this? Any advice would be greatly appreciated because right now, I feel completely lost. Update 1. It's been 2 days since my original post, and I wanted to give you all an update on my situation. First of all, thank you so much for all your comments and support. It really means a lot to me during this difficult time. As I mentioned in my original post, I've been staying at my aunt's place since the disastrous birthday party. Her house is nice, it's smaller than my parents' place, but it feels more like a home somehow. Maybe because I don't feel like I'm walking on eggshells here. My aunt has given me the guest room, and she's told me I can stay as long as I need to. Unfortunately, things have only gotten more complicated since I left my parents' house. Yesterday morning, I woke up to a barrage of text messages from my parents. I was honestly surprised it took them this long to reach out, but I guess they needed time to process everything too. When I saw their names pop up on my phone, my stomach immediately tied itself in knots. The messages were a bizarre mix of apology and accusation. They started by saying they were sorry about how things had escalated at the party, but then quickly pivoted to telling me that I needed to apologize to my sister and give her the check. I couldn't believe what I was reading. After everything that happened, they were asking me to apologize? I took a deep breath and typed out a response, telling them that I wasn't going to apologize and I certainly wasn't giving back the check. I reminded them that my aunt had given it to me, in front of everyone, after she saw how my sister behaved. Their replies came quickly. My mom said, "Honey, we know your sister said some hurtful things, but she was just emotional because of her birthday. You know how she gets. She's really sorry about it now." I had to bite my tongue to keep from laughing. Emotional because of her birthday? She's 30 now, not 5. And sorry? The forced apology they made her give hardly counts. My dad's message was more stern. "Look, what your sister did wasn't right, but she's apologized. Now it's time for you to be the bigger person. That check was meant for her, and you need to give it back." I took a moment to collect my thoughts before responding. I told them that they've always taken her side, always made excuses for her behavior. I said I was done being treated like a second-class citizen in my own family, and that I wasn't coming back. There was a long pause before their next messages came through. My mom said I was tearing the family apart. My dad told me I was being childish and needed to grow up. Their words stung, but they also reinforced my decision to leave. I've been ignoring most of their messages since then. My phone has been blowing up with texts from other family members too. Some are angry, telling me I'm being selfish and need to come home and make things right. Others are more sympathetic, saying they understand why I left but urging me to reconsider for the sake of family unity. The only person I've been responding to is my best friend from grad school. She's been checking in on me regularly, offering support and a listening ear. She's even offered to come stay with me for a few days if I need the company. I might take her up on that offer. It would be nice to have someone here who's completely removed from all this family drama. My aunt has been incredibly supportive through all of this. We've had some long talks over the past couple of days. She's filled me in on some family history I never knew about, including more details about my sister's adoption. Apparently, my parents were struggling to have another child after me, and when my aunt got pregnant unexpectedly, it seemed like the perfect solution for everyone. I thought I was doing the right thing, my aunt told me, her eyes filled with regret. I wasn't ready to be a mother, and your parents wanted another child so badly. I never imagined it would turn out like this. I don't blame my aunt. She made a decision she thought was best at the time. It's my parents I'm angry with. They're the ones who created this toxic family dynamic, who always put my sister on a pedestal while making me feel like I was never good enough. As for the check, I still haven't cashed it. Part of me feels guilty about taking it, like maybe I'm proving my sister right about being greedy or something. But then I remember everything she said at the party, how she humiliated me in front of everyone, and I think maybe I deserve this. Maybe it's the universe's way of making things right. My grad school classes start up again in a few weeks. I'm looking forward to getting back to my studies. It'll be a welcome distraction from all of this. But I'm also dreading it in a way. How am I supposed to focus on my research when my entire family life has imploded? I'm still trying to figure out what to do long term. Do I try to repair things with my family? Or do I cut ties completely? The thought of never speaking to my parents again makes my heart ache, but then I remember how they've treated me all these years, and I wonder if I'd be better off without them. I keep thinking about all the birthdays, all the family gatherings where my sister was the center of attention and I was pushed to the side. All the times my accomplishments were downplayed while hers were celebrated. It's like I'm seeing my entire childhood through a new lens now, and it's painful. My aunt says I should take some time to process everything before making any big decisions. She's probably right. Right now, everything feels raw and confusing. I'm angry, I'm hurt, and I'm exhausted. So, for now, I'm just taking it one day at a time. I'm trying to focus on self-care, eating well, getting enough sleep, going for walks to clear my head. My aunt has been great about giving me space when I need it, but also being there to talk when I feel up to it. I'm not sure what the future holds, but I know I can't go back to the way things were before. Something has to change. I just hope I have the strength to see it through, whatever it turns out to be. Thank you again for all your support. It means more than you know to have people listen and understand. I'll update again if anything significant changes. Until then, wish me luck. I think I'm going to need it. Update 2. It's been 3 days since my last update, and I honestly didn't think I'd be posting again so soon. But the situation has taken an unexpected turn, and I'm feeling more conflicted than ever. First of all, thank you to everyone who commented on my last post. Your support and advice mean the world to me. I've been trying to take it all in and figure out my next steps. So, here's what's been happening. The messages from my family haven't stopped. In fact, they've gotten more frequent and more intense. At first, I was ignoring them all, but it's gotten to the point where it's impossible to avoid. My parents have been texting and calling non-stop. When I blocked their numbers, they started using new ones. They've even created new social media accounts to try and reach me after I blocked their original ones. It's like they're playing some twisted game of digital whack-a-mole. My sister has been surprisingly quiet, but I've heard from my aunt that she's been throwing massive tantrums at home. Apparently, she's convinced herself that I've stolen her inheritance and is demanding that our parents do something about it. Other family members have been reaching out too. Some cousins I haven't spoken to in years suddenly want to catch up. My grandparents left a tearful voicemail begging me to come home. Even my uncle, my dad's brother, who lives across the country and usually stays out of family drama, sent me a long email about the importance of forgiveness. It's all so overwhelming. I feel like I can't escape this situation no matter what I do. Every time my phone buzzes, my stomach does a flip. I'm constantly on edge, waiting for the next message or call. I've been talking to my aunt about all this, and she's been incredibly supportive. She thinks my family's behavior is completely out of line and has encouraged me to stand my ground. But she also understands how difficult this is for me. They're used to you giving in, she told me yesterday over a cup of tea. They don't know how to handle it when you stand up for yourself. I think she's right. For years, I've been the peacekeeper in the family, always backing down to avoid conflict. But now that I've finally put my foot down, they don't know how to react. After days of this constant barrage, I was at my wit's end. That's when I came up with an idea. It's probably not the most mature response, but I was desperate for some peace. I decided to send them a message with a set of conditions. I told them I would consider giving the check to my sister and coming back home, but only if two things happened. My sister had to publicly apologize to me, not just in front of our family, but on social media where all our friends and extended family could see it. Our parents had to publicly disown my sister. Now, let me be clear, I have no intention of actually following through with this. I just wanted to put them in an impossible situation, to make them feel even a fraction of the discomfort and conflict I've been feeling. The response was immediate and chaotic. My sister called me every name in the book, leaving voicemails full of expletives and threats. My mom sent a series of increasingly hysterical text messages, alternating between begging me to reconsider and accusing me of tearing the family apart. My dad, ever the pragmatist, tried to negotiate, asking if we could discuss more reasonable terms. It's been a day since I sent that message, and the reactions are still coming in. Some family members think I'm being cruel and unreasonable. Others seem to think I'm joking and aren't taking it seriously. A few have even said they understand why I'm angry but think I'm going too far. Part of me feels guilty for playing this game. I know it's not the most mature way to handle the situation. But another part of me feels a twisted sense of satisfaction. For once, they're the ones feeling uncomfortable and conflicted, not me. My aunt, when I told her what I'd done, just shook her head and laughed. "You're stirring up quite the hornet's nest," she said. "But maybe that's what this family needs. A good shake-up." I'm not sure what's going to happen next. I doubt my sister will ever agree to publicly apologize, and I know my parents would never actually disown her. But that's kind of the point. I wanted to show them how ridiculous and one-sided their expectations of me have always been. In the midst of all this family drama, I've been trying to focus on my own life. I've started looking for apartments near my grad school. If I'm going to make a clean break from my family, I need to be financially independent. The check from my aunt will help with that, but I'm also looking into part-time jobs and additional scholarships. I've also been spending more time with my best friend from grad school. She came to visit for a few days, and it was such a relief to talk to someone who isn't caught up in all this family drama. We went for long walks, watched silly movies, and just enjoyed each other's company. It reminded me that there's a whole world out there beyond my family issues. One thing that's been weighing on my mind is the upcoming semester. Classes start in just a few weeks, and I'm worried about how all this stress and drama will affect my studies. I've worked so hard to get where I am in my program, and I don't want to let my family issues derail my academic career. I've been thinking about reaching out to my advisor to give her a heads up about my situation. I'm not sure how much detail to go into, but I think it might be good for her to know that I'm dealing with some personal issues. Maybe she can offer some advice on balancing academic work with personal stress. As for my family, I'm at a crossroads. Part of me wants to cut ties completely and start fresh. But another part of me wonders if that's too extreme. Can I really just walk away from my entire family? Even with all their faults, they're still the people I've known my whole life. But then I think about all the years of favoritism, all the times I was made to feel less than, all the backhanded compliments and subtle put-downs. I think about my sister's cruel speech at her birthday party, and how my parents still expected me to apologize to her. And I wonder if maybe a clean break is exactly what I need. I keep coming back to something my aunt said to me the other day. We were sitting on her back porch, watching the sunset, and I was expressing my doubts about cutting ties with my family. She turned to me and said, "Sometimes, the family we choose is more important than the family we're born into. You have the right to surround yourself with people who truly value and support you." Those words have been echoing in my mind ever since. Maybe she's right. Maybe it's time for me to choose my own family, one built on mutual respect and genuine love, not obligation and conditional affection. For now, I'm going to continue ignoring the messages from my family. I'm going to focus on preparing for the upcoming semester, looking for a new apartment, and spending time with the people who truly support me. I'm not going to make any permanent decisions yet, but I'm also not going to let myself be manipulated or guilted into going back to a toxic situation. Thank you all again for your support and advice. It means more than you know to have a space to share my thoughts and feelings. I'll update again if anything significant changes. Wish me luck as I navigate this next chapter of my life. Update 3. It's been 5 days since my last update, and I'm still reeling from what happened this morning. I thought things couldn't get any more intense, but I was wrong. I was waiting for a food delivery when the doorbell rang. Without checking who it was, I opened the door, and there stood my sister. Before I could react, she pushed her way inside, screaming at me. "You're trying to steal my life," she yelled, her face red with anger. "First the money, and now you're even stealing my mother from me." I was too shocked to respond. That's when my aunt came into the room, alerted by the commotion. She tried to calm the situation, explaining to my sister that it was her own behavior that had led to the current circumstances. "It's unfair to blame your sister for any of this," my aunt said calmly. "The check was mine to give, and I chose to give it to her after seeing how you behaved at the party." But my sister wasn't listening. She turned on my aunt, accusing her of abandoning her as a baby and saying she had no right to make decisions about her life now. My aunt tried to reason with her, explaining that she hadn't abandoned her, but had made a difficult decision to give her a better life. She even mentioned that it was our parents who had insisted on waiting until my sister was an adult before telling her the truth. As my sister's shouting grew louder, my aunt finally lost her patience. She told my sister to leave, and when she refused, my aunt physically pushed her out of the house, saying she would call the police if my sister didn't leave immediately. My sister continued screaming outside for a few minutes, even kicking the door, before finally leaving. The whole incident left me shaken and confused. I'm starting to wonder if cutting ties with my family is really the right decision. This situation seems to be bringing out the worst in everyone. But at the same time, I can't imagine going back to the way things were before. My aunt has been incredibly supportive through all of this, but I can see the toll it's taking on her too. I feel guilty for bringing all this drama into her life. I'm more confused than ever about what to do next. The new semester starts soon, and I'm not sure how I'm going to focus on my studies with all this going on. Any advice would be greatly appreciated. Update 4. It's been a week since my last update, and I think this might be my final post. The situation has reached a breaking point, and I've made some tough decisions. 2 days ago, my parents showed up at my aunt's house with my sister in tow. I was surprised they even knew where my aunt lived, but I guess they must have done some digging. As soon as I saw them through the window, my heart started racing. My aunt answered the door, and immediately, chaos erupted. My parents started accusing me of stealing my sister's life, while my sister stood behind them, nodding vigorously. They then turned on my aunt, blaming her for pushing her own child to the sidelines and playing favorites. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The hypocrisy was astounding. I pointed out how they had been doing exactly that to me for years, but they denied it vehemently. They claimed I had always gotten everything I wanted and that I was just being greedy about the check. The argument escalated quickly. Everyone was shouting, talking over each other. My sister was in tears, my mom was getting hysterical, and my dad was red in the face with anger. My aunt tried to mediate, but it was useless. At one point, my parents even accused my aunt of being stingy because she earns more than they do as a family, yet she couldn't just write another check for my sister. I was appalled. It was never about the money for my aunt, it was about principles. The shouting got so loud that the neighbors ended up calling the police. When the officers arrived, my parents and sister finally left, but not before my dad said they would never speak to me or my aunt again. Honestly, I felt relieved. After they left, I had a long talk with my aunt. We both agreed that trying to maintain a relationship with my parents and sister at this point would be harmful to our mental health. It's a painful decision, but I think it's the right one. Tomorrow, I'm heading back to grad school. I'm looking forward to focusing on my studies and building a life away from all this drama. I've cashed the check from my aunt and will use it wisely to secure my future. Thank you all for your support throughout this ordeal. Your advice and kind words have been a lifeline. Wish me luck as I start this new chapter of my life.